Hey, how do you feel about some high rarity cards, or maybe some foreign ones, or maybe be ahead of the game with others by preparing for future set releases with very quick shipping? Check out EJ Gaming and use code British5 on checkout for 5% off on all your orders. Link in the description.
Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. Valiant Smashers is now legal in the TCG, meaning that the Centurion, Memento, and the Valmonica strategies all can be played and most likely will be played to some degree in the TCG. As many people are anticipating, there is one outlier to the equation, and that one is Centurion. The game plan and structure behind this archetype is very unique, it's adaptable, it can play a fair amount of non-engine, has a solid win condition, and can pretty much just win the game if it has its engine rolling. Which bears the topic that I kind of wish to speak today, and I think is not often talked about when it comes to side sets in general. So, as some people already know, I've been very curious on Memento after its release. This is an archetype that had me really intrigued with its design, and it had a couple of criteria that I believed, if it was more polished, would have been a top tier contender alongside the Centurion. I already made a video talking about this archetype and what it does. Feel free to check it out. Right now, this is my current list. So in this list that I have right here is pretty much a pure build. I'm playing 3 of the Combined Creation, 3 of the Anguish, Angel Wish or Andu Wish is called, 3 of the Dark Blade, 2 of each the level 1s, 3 of the Tatsuno Shigo, and the Trihorn Dragon. So, explaining the ratios, these 2 are your main starters. You kind of always want to open with either Dark Blade or the Anguish. That's why those 2 are 3. The Tatsuno Shigo, it's an extender. You can special summon it from hand if you only control mementos or you don't control monsters at all. So it being a free summon already warrants a spot in the deck, because not only is it a free summon, it is a monster that can just help dump memento monsters into your graveyard, which helps with the Combined Creation. The reason I'm playing more than one Goblin and more than one Mace is that in the off chance you do end up drawing them, you can still have targets for the Tatsuno Shigo if you just want to dump those in general. The reason for the 1 copy of the Horn Dragon is it's not the easiest monster to summon, but it is a boss monster you can summon in this deck, and it does kind of help you push through boards, and it's a level 8 monster you can use with Tatsuno Shigo's effect to just dump 3. Now let's talk about the Combined Creation. The reason there are 3 copies of the Combined Creation is because of this card right here, the Mementolian Boneback. Basically, this monster can summon this thing from the hand or deck if a Memento left the field because of an opponent's card, and you just want to have as many copies of this as possible for the Boneback to resolve in the off chance that you have already went through 1 or 2 in rotation. Take note that you can actually return the Combined Creation to summon another copy of itself, so you technically have infinite resources in order to keep using Boneback. So I'm maxing out on Boneback and on Bone Party. I think these 2 cards are extremely important. I think the Boneback is more important because if you go second and your opponent just tries to remove monsters from your board, like in any way, shape, or form, this will just end up summoning the Combined Creation, and if the Combined Creation doesn't get interrupted, this can just push through the entire board that they might possibly have. It is 5k attack, and it can attack all monsters. So that's just very beneficial from this end. Bone Party is just another consistency card. You're playing a lot of Memento monsters, so you can just like end up cycling 1 for another one. So like you mainly want to either summon the Dark Witch or add something like the Dark Blade, or just do something else like that. It's a shame they sunset in defense, but I understand like the point behind it. Basically, they don't want you to like just crash into monsters or just like push through boards easily with this card. We don't care about the extra decks, so prosperity is here. Same thing with Super Poly. As you can notice, I'm not playing hand traps in this deck. The main reason for that is I really don't care about my opponents interacting with my cards as long as I have the correct cards that can punish them for it. There is a risk factor to be taken because there are some cards that can just end turns. For example, the Calamity, but that's what cards like Super Poly are here for. Tactics and Thrust, pretty much the same thing. The thing, one cool thing about Thrust is they can set the Fracture Dance, which is one card that is very, very helpful. The reason Terraforming is in here is strictly because of Thrust. If Thrust was not in my main deck, neither would this card. This card is a placeholder, and this is something I want to discuss in the video. This is not in the deck profile because this card is not TCG legal yet. And that goes to like explaining some things that I have an issue with. So Memento has a problem, and that problem is very, very hard to fix at the moment. If Konami would have addressed it, or would address it, this might become one of the scariest decks we've had in a while. I'm going to just showcase you one duel that I had, and I'm going to explain in depth exactly what I mean by that. So, this is a match I had against Nesh. For those who already know, for those who don't know, Nesh is a very, very competent player. Most people should know who he is by now. He is friends in old. He is in all testing groups. He is friends with like all the professional players. He pretty much like lives and dies and breathes dueling book. But yeah, I managed to have a match with him, and this is a match with me playing the Memento deck. He is playing Unchained. He won the die roll, so he went first. As you already know, I don't have any hand traps, so I pretty much just gave him the thumbs up and let him resolve the entire combo. He pretty much opts to go for the combo that ends on just the High King Caesar and just relying on the trap to, well, on the traps rather, to just use the Unchained cards. So I go second, I activate the Bone Party, he does not negate it. Pretty much like probably like thinking of the thrust that I could have in hand or just not being familiar with the deck. That makes me summon the Horn Dragon, and now I summon Dark Blade, and this is where he pretty much has to do something. Immediately upon summon, I use Dark Blade's effect to discard the Anguish. I don't know if that was the right play or not. Because I do have Super Poly in my hand and I do have triple tactic thrust, and you can make the argument that I could just kept the wish for the Super Poly fodder and just use the thrust for something else. So I discard the wish, he activates the trap, that summons both Unchained, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier. In hindsight, I should just not have activated the Dark Blade's effect and put him on a position where if he does not interact with my board, the Dark Blade would have popped the Horn Dragon in order to summon from the deck. And the Horn Dragon could have popped 2 of his cards. However, he does have the High King Caesar, which means he could have negated the Dark Blade's effect. But either way, that would have meant like just making triple thrust live in order for me to like punish or contest to the board in another shape or form. That being said, he uses the Unchained Soul to like dump the destroy the Dark Blade, and then he chose Ash Blossom, which is pretty much the nail in the coffin. I can't do anything about that. So now we're going to game 2. So this game I go first. So Nesh did not open any hand trap or going second cards, and I opened the field spell, talent, thrust, bomb party, creation, and Tatsunoshigo. This is pretty much full combo. Pretty much I'm going to activate Tatsunoshigo, I'm going to use the bomb party to summon the Trihorn Dragon, and that's the monster that I'm popping with the Tatsunoshigo effect. Meaning that I can dump monsters into my graveyard until the total level equal 8. And I'll be dumping Mace. The Goblin is going to be returned back. Or the Mace, yeah. And so I end up summoning, sending Darkblade, Anguish, and Goblin. In the future, once Phantom Nightmare is released, we will be able to dump 4 Mementos instead of 3. Because it means that you can send the Added Ghost, and the Added Ghost is level 2. Making the Tatsunoshigo a little bit more stronger, like, in the future. So now we're going to activate the Memento Mactillan effect. Since a monster got destroyed, we're going to summon a Memento with a lower level. And now we're going to use the Anguish effect. The Anguish is going to grab us the Mace. And there's no point in grabbing Darkblade because we already have it in the graveyard. We're just going to grab Mace, which is the monster that we're missing out of the rotation. And she's going to use her effect to, like, grab us another Memento card. So we pop the Tatsunoshigo, we grab the Cranium Burst. I then do Anguish effect to summon Goblin. Now we use Goblin's effect. Goblin is going to dump Fracture Dance and Bone back. The reason we're sending these two specifically is because if he decides to interact with my graveyard, the Bone back is going to be punishing them for it. And the Fracture Dance is a card that can potentially be set with the Memento Mactillan. However, I did get to the Cranium Burst, so you'll be seeing later on that I'm going to be setting the Bone back, and then you'll understand why in a second. So basically the Combined Creation is summoned, and this is the deck's win condition. This is what exactly the board you kind of want to end on. You want to end on the Combined Creation mixed with the Cranium Burst. For those who don't know, Cranium Burst is essentially just like a 2-element Soliac. Basically, you can negate a monster that your opponent controls as long as you control the Combined Creation. The caveat for that is that the Cranium Burst will lower the Combined Creations attack by 1,000, and the other effect that it has, which will be relevant in this particular duel, is that he is forced into attacking your highest attack Memento while this card is on board and you only control Mementos. Well, it doesn't mean you only control Mementos, just control a Memento in general. So he grabs Escape, he uses Aruha for Escape, that creation is going to send, and it's going to summon the Abominable Unchained Soul. Now we're going to chain the Cranium Burst again. Most likely, like Nesh right now, his goal is to try to get rid of the Cranium Burst. That's the thing that he wants to do in this particular game. However, like, the Cranium Burst is not once per turn, it's once per chain. Meaning that each time he tries to activate a monster effect on field, I'm just going to keep negating. He now dumps Chiyama with the Rhino. The Aruha is going to summon Rakea. And now Chiyama is going to try to destroy the Rakea. So in conclusion, he can destroy another card. I think it's not a secret. I think he most likely just wants to get rid of the Cranium Burst, which is going to prompt me to activate it once more. And now this is the mistake that Nesh made. As soon as he entered the battle phase, the game was over. And the reason for that is going to be shown in a few seconds. Basically, since Memento monster left the field because of an opponent's card, you can use the Bone back and just summon a new copy of the Combined Creation. And now he has to deal with this Combined Creation that has full attack. And to make matters worse, because of Cranium Burst, all his monsters are forced to attack their combined creation. This is pretty much like a final attack orders situation where you are forced to attack the highest monster. I think another card that does something similar is Staunch Defender. But yeah, he pretty much just scoops it up. I pretty much explained to him that he has to attack again, and that's pretty much the end of the duel. And now we're going to game 3, and this is a common situation you're going to see amongst duels. So Nesh's hand was not the best. Like right now, he grabbed this Rakeya, which kind of makes him play the game. You could make the argument that Ash Blossom could be activated on the Prosperity. Usually when people activate Prosperity first before any other card, that means that their hand is not good. Otherwise, they would be doing their other plays and just keep their Prosperity for last. But I didn't want to be in a situation where I negated the Prosperity and he actually had the proper extenders. So, looking at this duel, in hindsight, ashing the Prosperity probably would have been the right move. You pretty much just have to read your opponent and think if your engine is good enough to handle their engine being subpar. However, me giving them that Rakeya is going to be a very, very big deal. You'll see in a second why. Pretty much, he activates that, he activates Abomination's Prison, which I also could have negated, but now he does Rakeya to pop that, and I negate that with Ash Blossom. Now he's going to do Vice King to the DDD, and the DDD can pop the Rakeya, giving him the access to the gate. Looking at the sequence and looking how he's structuring all his plays, it pretty much would not have made a difference would I have Ash Blossomed, because he was still going to end on this board regardless with the cards that he had left. However, unfortunately, that means he gets to do the entire combo, and this is a situation where it's kind of not winnable, because as of right now, there are no cards in my hand that's going to like bait the Kaikin Caesar enough times for me to keep playing. And this is one situation that I have with the deck, which I will explain after this match is over. But pretty much drawing too much of your engine is also a struggle sometimes for some decks, and Memento is just one of them. I summon the Mace, he summons Sharvara. Sharvara is going to make it so he can summon Abominable. Abominable destroys the Mace, and that's the end of the duel. And now we're gonna go back to talking about the deck and some issues that I have with it. As you saw from this game right here, one issue that I have with Memento is a lot of Memento monsters have self-destruction effects. However, the only monster in the deck that can benefit out of being destroyed is the Added Ghost. And this card is not even TCG legal. This card comes out in Phantom Nightmare. The only other card that kind of helps with your Memento cards is the Memento McTillan. And my issue with the McTillan is that it makes it so you have to summon a monster that's a lower level than what it was destroyed. If this was any Memento monster with a different name, this card would have been significantly better. I think this would have been like automatically a 3-off in the deck, most likely. I think this deck would have had a huge level of resiliency. And so, yeah, like the Mementos not being able to benefit out of themselves being popped is a really, really big deal. I think that level of power of them just getting more effects pulled off if they themselves got destroyed would have made this deck a lot more resilient. It probably would have made it like very close to something like Tear Elements and Unchained, where you just have monsters that your opponent has to worry about if they end up like popping themselves left and right. So my second issue with this deck, and that's another reason I lost this duel, is because the combined creation relies on Memento monsters being shuffled back and not Memento cards. If by somehow, shape, or form this would have been able to use Memento cards in general. Same thing with the Trihorn Dragon. Like, if this monster was able to be special summoned by just having 3 Memento cards, I think this deck would have been a lot easy to manage, because it pretty much means you can dump a lot of your resources and without any worries, because your boss monsters can just use those resources to facilitate their summons. Right now, like, the win condition of the deck is solid. The deck has a good level of consistency because you do have enough starters that can just start your game plan. But unless you have Boneback or Bone Party, the boss monsters are just a little too hard to summon. And that's one issue that I'm going to talk about right now. So, Boneback, I feel, is like one of the better cards in the deck. However, my issue with Boneback is that it can only special summon the combined creation from your hand or your deck. If it had the ability to summon from the banished and from the graveyard, I think that would have been very, very huge. I think that would have easily made this deck a lot stronger than what it is right now. I think it was enough to maybe push them for tier 1.5 status. Like, maybe not, because Boneback is just one card, but just having a great power of resiliency to just being able to summon your boss monster from anywhere would have meant that I am not forced to play more copies of the combined creation. It means that we can play less copies of Memento cards in general, and just play this deck as a solid board breaker going second deck that can just summon the combined creation from all fronts. So, in conclusion, Memento is sadly an archetype that did not fit the same criteria as Centurion did. Like, the archetype is consistent, it does have good amount of starters, it has a good boss monster, their spell and traps are not bad at all. However, it relies way too much on their engine. You need to play a surplus number of them to make the deck work. And, like, some cards just pretty much just missed the mark, like, when it comes to, like, their conditions. I feel like if Konami does address those issues, this might become a really, really scary deck in the format in the future. It is a very annoying deck. The Cranium Burst combo is really, really strong when it resolves. Not many people know how to play around it. However, until something else happens with this archetype, we're pretty much just looking at a Tistina situation where they gave them good amount of cards, but not strong enough cards for what we have at the format. But yeah, only time will tell. Until then, this has been Showcase of Memento. I hope you found this video informative. I hope you found this to your liking and understanding. And as always, keep practicing and keep dueling.